mere baal, my good hair, which are falling. Why is money not falling from paid?
तो चालू करें.
ठीक है, let's start. Let's do this. Yes.
Ready?
Ready. Yes.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to Gen Sustainable. I hope all my eco sprouts are doing well and living an impactful life. And today, as you can see, we have a wonderful guest with us, Ashwika, who is going to take us on her sustainability journey. And this is going to be a very fun, interesting, and candid video talking to Ashwika. So watch till the end, like, share, and subscribe to this video. And let's get started.
Hi.
Hello, Ashwika.
Hi.
So first I'll introduce you all. So Ashwika is a very talented ESG consultant, and she has worked across companies. So she has worked in a boutique ESG consulting firm. She has worked in a big four, and right now she's working in a global management consulting organization who is just starting out their ESG wing. So she is one of the core old team members of her ESG vertical in her company. So there's a lot of experience she can share with us. So how are you feeling, Ashwika, coming on Gen Sustainable?
I'm feeling amazing. Thank you for inviting me here. Yes, for sure. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, and we are going to learn a lot of things from Ashwika because she has a lot of interesting stories to tell us. So I have some interesting questions for Ashwika, and I do have a very interesting rapid fire round as well.
Oh my God, you did not tell me this.
I'm telling you now.
Oh my
so
God.
That we keep it candid for our viewers. If I would tell you, you would come prepared for it. And
yes, that's true.
There wouldn't be fun in rapid fire.
Fair.
But now that you don't know the questions.
Okay,
I'm
so nervous.
Don't be nervous. It's just a podcast. You've cracked interviews, Ashwika.
Yes.
What's
indeed.
a podcast?
I agree. Yes.
So I have a bunch of questions I'll ask Ashwika. And yeah, so let's get started. I have the questions with me here. So let's begin with the first question. Okay, so we can just start with a quick introduction. You can tell about yourself, about your educational qualifications, how you came into this entire sector of ESG sustainability. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. To begin with, I had done my bachelor's in travel and tourism, followed by which I had done a master's in management from Singapore. And that is where I came across the term sustainability and its modules and, what sustainability is all about. So I did a module in Singapore, and followed by which, COVID hit. So after I came back, I was like, what to do next? So during COVID, I found this course, a postgraduate diploma in sustainability, which I pursued for a year. So I did that.
And this is from which college?
The sustainability one?
Yeah.
It's from SIES.
Okay.
So there is SIES, Indian Institute of Environment Management, which has this course, postgraduate diploma.
Okay.
And so I did it from there. It was a 1-year course. And yeah, that is where I started sustainability from.
That's interesting. And it's also an interesting shift from travel and tourism to business management and finally landing up into sustainability.
Yes, true.
So I think one thing I always keep telling people who ask me, if there is any particular course you need to do to get into sustainability, I think you don't need any particular course. You just need to have passion for sustainability and just need to read about sustainability and get your technical skills done. So that's how you land into sustainability.
True, absolutely.
That's great. So tying next to it, so can you tell about your professional journey? So where did you start working first, and then how did you make all of your transitions in the career?
So I started my career in a boutique consulting firm, which had various domains from ESG to forestry to decarb and all. So I worked in the ESG part, wherein I was primarily dealing with, I was working for reporting and impact assessments and all of those kind of things. So yeah, that's what I started from. Then I switched to a Big Four. Um, there I worked under various domains like reporting, primarily reporting. Then we had strategy, we had assurance, and of course ratings, ESG
Okay.
ratings. Yeah, and now I am in my third company, and it's almost a very similar role to the Big Four. So yeah.
And since your academic background is completely different from sustainability, so what really helped you crack all of these interviews? What is the reading material that you had, and how did you navigate all of your interviews? How did you prepare for them without, like, considering that you did not have an educational qualification, particularly in sustainability?
Right. So definitely, I did not have a bachelor's, but I made sure that I had done at least a short diploma, which I mentioned earlier. That having a small course also helps, because then it gives the perspective to the interviewer that there is some background. Necessarily, not necessarily having a background in sustainability or environment from bachelor's, but definitely a master's or postgrad definitely helps. So keeping that in mind, I definitely did the course. The next thing was, when I was preparing for interviews, I was going. So sustainability is a huge umbrella.
Yeah.
So there are so many aspects that you could touch upon, that you could study, but then you need to be clear, what do you want to do exactly.
Right.
So to begin with, I started understanding GRI. It's Global Reporting Initiative, which is the Bible of sustainability, because it definitely gives that umbrella overview
Yeah,
that we are talking
definitely,
about.
yeah.
So it gives that umbrella overview, and that's the first thing. The second is, of course, GHG protocol, because sustainability is also about understanding what goes into the environment and how you can actually track, monitor. First account, then track and monitor. So of course, GHG accounting and GHG protocol, I mean, the second most big thing. So that is
Yeah.
something to touch upon. Apart from that, you have a lot of frameworks, lot of concepts. For example, materiality is a key concept that GRI highlights.
Right.
So we have that. We have other concepts of circular economy or impact assessments, or so many other climate change risk assessment and so on. So these topics are also there, which a lot of other frameworks have. You can talk about SASB, you can talk about TCFD, you can talk about IFRS, you have the ratings.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think once you know GRI well, it also becomes very easy to pick up concepts from these other frameworks.
True.
Because that GRI like really sets that base for you. GRI and GHG protocol.
Yes.
So then you can easily grasp other concepts. If you know how to do GHG accounting, you can easily work on a lot of other frameworks. You know what to report in other frameworks like BRSR or CSRD. They are just prepared, keeping GRI as the basic. So even if you don't have to directly work on reporting related to GRI, if you know GRI, it like comes handy always.
Always.
Yeah. So that's an interesting tip. The most important one to know, that GRI is the Bible. So apart from these frameworks, what are some core technical skills like data analytics or some other skills like softwares that that really help people and that one should know?
So I think, talking about technical skills, I think one of the main things is definitely understanding certain tools. I mean, to begin with, one should know the Microsoft Office, because Excel and PowerPoint are some key handy tools in the consulting world. So definitely Excel and PowerPoint. But okay, so apart from Excel, you can definitely try and get some experience on Power BI. That's one tool. For people use it mainly for visualization purposes of the data that they have captured or tracked. And apart from that, you can learn Python, like you can learn the coding part of it for Excel, which will again help in understanding data in terms of the huge amount of data. Yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful because because a lot of times I think as freshers we are confused that if we really
True.
need to learn all of these different tools, if we need to know Python, and if you don't come from that type of a background where you have academically learned Python or something like that, then
Right.
it really gets challenging as well to learn at a later stage. But yeah, but then it's
Yeah.
very helpful to know that for core consulting, just having a good command over
Yes.
Excel and PowerPoint helps you.
Yes. It does. It does.
So tell me, Ashwika, apart from these technical skills or apart from knowing
Mm-hmm.
these frameworks, what are some soft skills that help as a consultant? Like, how should a consultant present themselves and how should a
Mm-hmm.
consultant talk and communicate to
Right.
grow well in the organization as well as to develop their knowledge?
Mm-hmm. So, to actually answer this question, we need to understand what is consulting. So, consulting is giving solutions, it's more about problem solving. So, it doesn't start with soft skills, it starts with mindset, you can say, to have that problem solving mindset, to think about how you can give a solution to your client, keeping in mind your frameworks, keeping in mind the regulatory requirements, keeping in mind the evolving landscape. How do you customize the solutions for your client? That is the main role. So that
Okay.
comes from first understanding this. And talking about soft skills, it's about clear communication, timely communication for sure, because when you deal with clients who are quite strict, or they adhere to timelines very strictly, it's important that you communicate clearly about the deliverables, about the timelines, about the task, about the activities or the services that you are giving. So that is definitely one thing.
Okay.
Remembering another fact, as one of my managers in my previous firms told me, is that you need to remember this fact that you know more than the client. That helps. That
Definitely.
is definitely
Definitely.
yes. I think you know where this is coming from.
Yeah.
So definitely
Yeah.
always remember you know more than the client. You know more, you understand more, and that definitely gives you that confidence boost in telling the client that this is the kind of solution you're looking for. So that definitely helps, guys. Remember this. Apart from that, when presenting yourself in front of the client, it's important to understand the background of the client. For example, if it's a firm that's newly entering the sustainability journey, it's important for us as consultants to make it easier, to make it simple for them to understand, so that they can help us with the kind of data that we need, and then we can in turn help them align themselves with their requirements, with regulatory requirements or other kind of requirements that are there in the market. So that is one thing.
Okay. So picking up on your what you just said, that we need to be ahead of our clients. So how do you actually stay ahead of your client? Because there are so many evolving regulations coming up every now and then.
Right.
And there are so many developments happening, and there are clients who once mature till a certain level. If they are just beginning, they mature to a certain level, to a primary level, then to a secondary level. How you as a consultant keep a track of all of these happenings in the world wherever you're working? What is it that helps you remain up to date, especially with related to sustainability?
So, I mean, to answer that, we live in a highly connected world. Everything is literally on our fingertips. So it's not difficult to go on the best of news sites, news websites, to go on the best of apps. However, I would recommend certain sites, that give us the most updated or the most recent ones. One of them is ESG Today, that is for sure. We have Bloomberg, so
Okay.
Bloomberg Opinion, Bloomberg Solutions, Bloomberg ESG. They have these pages on Instagram, on their website. You can go and check what's happening. There's also government websites. So, for example, if you are very much into, understanding what the government of India is doing, you can definitely check out IBEF.in. There is that. Then you have um, then apart from this, you definitely have LinkedIn, because people continuously post about the latest developments that are happening in sustainability across the globe. Whatever new solutions are coming, whatever new developments in terms of regulatory policies, regulations, laws, taxonomies that are come up. So LinkedIn is a great source of information for sure.
Okay, yeah. I feel out of all of these, the ones which have helped me the most, I think, is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Because there is any update out in the world, there are people who just keep posting on LinkedIn. So recently there was Omnibus update.
Yes.
And
yes.
I got to know because just as soon as I opened LinkedIn, I saw so many posts related to Omnibus, and that is how I could keep myself updated that, yeah, this is the regulation coming.
Yeah,
So
it was a huge regulation change.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a very helpful tip, and I'll provide all of these links in the description below so people can view them. Okay, so moving to the value creation aspect of sustainability. Now we do come across a lot of clients who ask us that why should we invest in sustainability and all of these processes related to sustainability. So when you come across clients who bring up such questions, what would your answer be?
That's a great question, actually. Very recently, I came across this post on LinkedIn by a very senior ESG professional that said that, it was a conversation between two people, and probably the client asking, give us a business case for sustainability. And the second person said that, do you really need a business case to do the right thing, for nature, for the environment? And I think that really resonated with me. So to understand sustainability is not just about environment, it's also about the people, the communities, and all stakeholders that the organization or an individual interacts with. So it's important to understand that sustainability is a term that we have used to embed into our operations, to embed into our daily life, so that we can do good, do the right thing for nature, for environment, for us, and for the future generations.
Okay. So moving more towards now the client bit. Now in consulting especially, you have to deal with a lot of clients.
Yes.
So how do you develop your client interaction skills? Like what are the soft skills that you require, especially for client interaction?
One of the main things I think that you should focus on is preparation, because I've realized that being prepared for a meeting, understanding your client, understanding the industry, understanding where they come from, the mindset that they have, and the current environment, it helps you to prepare, to know. And with that comes clarity. And with that clarity, you can interact with the client, explaining how to go about each step, how to go about the whole sustainability journey. So that is one thing. As I said, preparation always translates into clarity, and that clarity will help you communicate clearly with the client.
So talking about the client relationships further, how do you develop your soft skills to have better client relationships, to develop the trust with your clients? So how do you tackle your clients in general with respect to communication?
Okay. Definitely preparation. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat it again, preparation. To understand what the client meeting will all be about. That's one thing. So preparation. The second will definitely be active listening. So you need to understand what the client is saying, from where they are coming, what they are hoping to do with you, the kind of partnership or collaboration they're expecting from you as a consultant on the project that you are on. And lastly, you need to convey or come across as a confident person, somebody who has the competence, the capabilities to deliver. So that is how you build the trust. Yeah.
Okay, and what are your strategies to deal with difficult clients who want everything on time, and you have like multiple deliverables happening at the same time, and there are some clients who are just not flexible to accommodate any smallest change or difference? So how do you deal with such difficult clients?
That's a great question actually, and that these are the kind of clients that you come across all the time when you are plotted in a project in at a big four. So for sure, I think to begin with, it's important to establish common ground by conveying to the client that look, this is how we would be working on, and definitely ask for their inputs. I think what sometimes we as consultants forget is that we are not just delivering, we are also collaborating with the client, to get the task, to give the delivery.
Right.
So it's important that you convey to the client, you discuss openly, like, look, this is how we generally approach the whole process, and understand that you have to customize your solution while giving it to each client, because the same solution, same strategy, same template of work will not be applicable to every client. So you need to understand how the client works. You need to understand how the client wants the work, and this can only happen with clear communication and setting the right objectives and goals at the start of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the gist of consulting is that you need to know how to deal with such difficult clients.
Yes.
Because a lot of time we keep working with 3 clients, 4 clients,
Yeah.
8 clients.
Absolutely.
And out of these 8 clients, even 2 clients say turn out to be such headstrong that they want it my way or the highway, and they
Yeah.
have no room for flexibility. It just creates so much of a hassle. So yeah, and a lot of times, like if you're working with 8 clients, it's very possible that 4 clients are
Extremely
such
difficult.
extremely difficult clients, and you just have to find out newer ways each time
Yes.
to deal with them.
Yes. I think I remember this one client wherein, they wanted it done in a certain way, and, they wanted it done in a certain way, and there was a little bit of friction between the client and between us. And then we realized that, they work in a different way, and we cannot follow that set template to work to our approach to the deliverables. And then we started to communicate with them, like, this is how we are doing, and this happened mid project. So that was a learning lesson, to understand how to communicate with the client, how to collaborate with them, and understand how collectively we can focus on the solution rather than anything else.
So now that we have discussed about the skills, soft skills, technical skills, client interaction, so now can you tell how your experience differed across the 3 types of firms that you have worked, from a boutique consulting firm to a big four to now working in a firm which is newly evolving their ESG wing? So how do the
Right.
roles and responsibilities change or evolve as you work across different firms?
Okay. So the boutique consulting firm was my first professional experience. So as a fresher, you are given, specific tasks under the entire project. So it was more about learning, the task at hand, very simple as writing a section of the report or calculating the carbon footprint, like tiny tasks. You're not doing everything in the project. So that was my first experience. In the second one at a big four, I started again by doing those tasks, which eventually evolved into taking on more responsibilities, doing more tasks within a particular project, delivering, finalizing the deliverables. And as towards the end of my towards the end of my second professional experience, I started leading parts of the project. Like, if we are doing a project with 4 to 5 services or 4 to 5 work streams, I started leading parts of it. So that is where I ended, and now I am in a new firm with its which has recently been established. The ESG wing has been recently established, and so here there is a bigger responsibility to lead, to take on the whole project and kind of give it the direction that it requires. So that is where I am right now.
Great, wonderful. So talking about this, say now if there is someone out there who is a complete fresher, is fresh out of college and is planning to join a ESG consulting firm. So how do the career progression look like? So how will the career progress, say, in the next 8 or 10 years?
So if we look at consulting, um, you start as an analyst right out of college, and then you have the analyst, then you have the consultant position. Sorry, you have the analyst position, you have associate consultant, consultant, senior consultant, then you are a manager, and then you have senior manager, director, associate director, sorry, director, and then partner, and so on, or head. So that's how it progresses. You definitely have consulting as a great option, because it gives you the exposure to work for various different sectors, for different kind of clients, different frameworks, different concepts, and different work streams, for sure. So consulting is a great option there. However, if you are very much keen into a specific industry, then you should join the industry and grow from there, from scratch, from ground levels. Talking about, sorry, you can start from the ground level and understand the operations and the context of the industry that you're working for, the company basically I'm talking here, and you can understand that and proceed within the firm as well. So that is one of the things.
And as you progress in your career, so from an analyst to associate consultant, how do your roles and responsibilities evolve?
So consulting is all about, as I said, it's a very solution oriented domain. So to begin with, when you start as a fresher, you are definitely given tiny small tasks at hand within the larger project. So you focus on understanding those tasks and the why and the hows of the task. Then you proceed, when you're a consultant, you start to understand the bigger picture. You understand why and hows you have already understood. You now look at how to deliver it, how to build on with the client, how to talk to the client, give the deliverables, present your solutions and all. And then as you move ahead, you also kind of not only lead people who are in your team, you are also bringing on more projects from clients. You are doing direct business development, you are reaching out to clients and developing your clientele and the kind of services that you want to provide. And eventually moving further from that, from the perspective of partners or so on, you're also looking at how do you take the collective department or your consulting ESG consulting arm, and how do you actually proceed it and take it into the market and develop your market. So that's how it looks.
Okay. And so now you have worked across different organizations. So how did the work culture differ in all of these three organizations?
Right. Now, the work culture is something that depends on the kind of firm you are in. So, for example, a niche consulting firm would have different projects, different kind of projects as compared to a big four, because they are dealing with very niche kind of projects, that are, say, focused on the interior parts of the country or international as well. So that is one thing. So with culture, it comes into the kind of people you are surrounded by with. So with the first experience that I had was more about being collaborative and daily team discussions and all. So at a big four, it's a high-paced, fast-paced environment. There is a lot of pressure to deliver your tasks on time, sometimes even before time, because there is a lot of reviewing, there is a lot of back and forth that happens internally. You have to take ownership of your work. You have to be accountable, and you have to be somebody who's taking that initiative to be like, hi, I can do it, give it to me. That kind of attitude really makes a difference. Of course, it gets overwhelming at times, and the pressure is so much that you kind of succumb to it. But trust me, the learning curve is extremely steep. The job satisfaction that you get after delivering your best, after getting those client feedback, good client feedback, that really, translates into, next level happiness, if I would say.
Right.
And yeah, that is one thing. And the exit options, for sure, they are great, because Big Four is recognized as, when you look at a person who's just left or who has worked at a Big Four,
You really look like from a different lens, I think, in the
yes,
job market.
true.
Yeah. And I think for Big Four, what is also important is that if you really want to do well in a Big Four, before your manager allots a task to you, you should be the one reaching out to your manager,
Yes.
telling you to allot the task. I
Yes.
think such
Yes.
type of go-getters are the ones who flourish in a Big Four.
Yes, so I think developing that kind of mindset and that kind of perspective really helps. So even if you are a little shy, you can definitely go and speak to your manager one on one and be like, I really want to do this kind of thing. Please take me up for it, and I'll deliver it. So that's the kind of confidence you need.
And while doing all of this,
Yes.
you're not supposed to let your existing tasks be affected. So it's
Yes.
definitely going to be an additional task. But
Yeah, so that is where your time management skills come into the picture. So instead of getting overwhelmed by the amount of tasks that you have, you should focus on getting those done. Because, as we said, consulting is about being a solution oriented individual, a professional who can deliver a solution, the deliverable, on time, clarity, and definitely a customized solution that will help the client truly and make a difference. Talking about my current firm, so as I said, it's a new, we have just established this consulting arm, ESG consulting arm. So it's a new team. We are all trying to navigate the space collectively as a team, trying to build on and find new clients. Also, our competition is the Big Four and a lot of consulting firms that have now come up. So definitely, trying to build on clients, gaining their trust, building expertise. That's what we are, currently as a team doing. Yeah.
great. That's interesting to know. And I think this new experience would be even more fulfilling and more challenging and adventurous. So, wishing you all the best with this new role as well.
Thank you.
And coming back to our set of questions, so for someone who is just starting out, what would you suggest to be like their first company? Should they focus on Big Fours at the entry level, or should they focus getting into a boutique consulting firm? So what should like the transition be from the first job to the next jobs?
I think it depends on the interest of the person and also the kind of pressure they want to take at the beginning of their career. Given that, Big Four is a fast paced environment with a lot of pressure to deliver and take ownership. It entirely depends on the individual, I would say. To begin with, I think you can choose between a small consulting firm or a Big Four, depending on your interest in terms of, let's say, the fast paced environment or the learning aspect. Of course, there is learning in both the places, but definitely if you don't want a lot of pressure initially in your career for the first 1.5 years, then you can definitely go for a small consulting firm wherein you are directly with your partner or with your manager, and you are getting that direct exposure. Whereas in a Big Four, it takes time to get hands-on experience in the first few months. In the first 3-4 months, it takes time for you to settle into the environment and everything. So that is one thing. I think ultimately it depends on the individual where they would like to go.
Okay.
Wait.
So now coming to the most juicy part of this video, can you tell what is the salary people can expect in consulting right from the beginning as a fresher, to how the salary grows as your experience increases? Because I think at the end of the day, we work to earn some money and pay our bills.
Yes.
So how does the money scenario look like in ESG consulting?
Definitely. I think I saw this question coming. So I would say that ESG consulting is definitely competitive, so you definitely get good salaries. To begin with, somebody who's fresh out of college and with a degree with respect to environment or sustainability would definitely start off anywhere between 5 to 8 lakhs, or 5 to 9 lakhs. Proceeding on, the next level, the next range comes between 9 to 12, 13, followed by 13 to 17, 18, and 18, 20, 18 to 25, depending
So
on the
how
manager.
long will it take for someone to go, say, from a 5 lakh to an 8 lakh salary?
So ideally, if in consulting, the promotion cycle is anywhere between 1 to 3 years. So you can be promoted in 1 year, in 2 years, or 3 years, depending on your seniority. So, initially you are promoted quickly, like within 1 to 2 years, you are promoted from analyst to associate consultant, or associate consultant to consultant, senior consultant. This happens between 1 to 2 years. But as you proceed towards post manager position, I think it takes time. It takes anywhere between 3 to 5 years, to get promoted. So answering your question, it would take 1 to 3 years to take that jump. But also, as we know that there are a lot of options in consulting. There are a lot of firms. There are a lot of niche consulting firms, boutique consulting, the big four. So the right jump at the right time can definitely change these brackets for you, change these salary brackets for you. So take the right jump, guys.
Great. And apart from salary, so what are the other perks that you get working as a consultant?
Well, there's a lot of travel for sure. A lot of travel, because you have to go to clients, you have to, you have to have client meetings, you have to conduct stakeholder engagement, you have to do audits, you have to go for business development if required. So there is a lot of travel for sure. So, and that gives you a lot of exposure to the world. Okay. So apart from salary benefits, I think the biggest benefit, guys, you'll get is learning and a great experience and exposure to consulting.
Great.
Yes.
That is really helpful. So now coming to our next question. So today is the world of AI, and AI is growing at a massive speed.
Yes.
And there are talks around everywhere in all industries that, in few years, AIs will take away our jobs and we'll literally be jobless. So what is your take on that? How should someone working in ESG consulting prepare for the AI revolution as well as to secure their jobs in the long run?
Finally, yes. That's the most valid question, and I agree to that. Because, I mean, our world is progressing towards high tech. We are all progressing towards extremely tech-based solutions, environment, and all kinds of solutions are tech-based, AI-based. So definitely, the question arises, how will AI, how will tech really, interact with ESG as a domain? And I think people are very scared about AI. But the fact is that AI is not here to take our jobs, guys. It's about how they will support us in improving our efficiency, our time, helping us reduce our time, and offer quick solutions. It's about, because as you see, the kind of AI that we have right now is the classic example is definitely ChatGPT, wherein you input a certain kind of question and you get an answer. So AI is definitely helping us. It's supporting us in our tasks, in our work, and it's not here to take our jobs. Because personally, I believe that any technology is incomplete without human intervention. So I believe that when we are asking the AI solutions, we are asking AI to give us solutions, it is still going to be us as ESG professionals who will interpret the responses from AI, tweak it, customize it, and then present it to the client, or then work on it and deliver it. So that is one of the main things. So I think AI taking our jobs, no, it's not. It's
Okay.
definitely here to support us. You have ChatGPT, you have Perplexity, you have iAsk.ai, you have so many other AI tools, and nowadays I recently came across on LinkedIn an AI tool, like a couple of tools for carbon accounting, for data
Okay.
collection. So it's actually making our work easier and also helping us focus on other areas that require improvement. So I think that's
Right.
really important.
Right. And I think as long as you're adding value, you're never out
Yes.
of job. And AI is not taking away your value, but rather empowering you to create
Yes.
more value. So
Yes,
it's
that's true.
always great to learn all of the
Yes.
AI tools. And from this, coming to the next question. So, what advice would you give the young Ashwika who is just starting out in ESG consulting?
Right. I think there would be a whole lot of there would be a huge list of suggestions and advice that I would give my younger self. But I think the first one would be to be confident, because preparation is what will help you be confident. And second, I think, but don't be afraid. I think that's the key, to not be afraid of what's coming, because you need to have faith in yourself that you can figure it out, deliver. That's the faith that you need to have in yourself. And I think read more news, definitely, and kind of stay updated with what's
Yeah.
happening. So yes, I think these would be my top 3 advice to my younger self, who's starting out in ESG. Yes.
And which moment from your career you think younger Ashwika would be the most proud of?
I think there was a time wherein it was an assurance project, and
I remember the
I think
project.
yes,
Yeah.
you would. We
Yeah.
were, yes. So there were a couple of points in that project where I felt, that I did it. And one of them was definitely, explaining the client a few calculation approaches that we had taken for that. And the second one was kind of, figuring out a very key aspect in assurance and presenting it clearly, because we had not done that kind of thing earlier, with that clarity, with that kind of clarity. So I think when I and another team member had really pulled it off, so that was a very happy moment, and a very, I felt very satisfied that I've done this. Yes.
Right. And talking about the forward journey, so what keeps you still motivated to be in this field of ESG and sustainability? And how do you envision your career to be further ahead from here?
Wow. Okay. I think what keeps me motivated is definitely, if I can add a pinch of sarcasm, is competition.
Okay.
To stay ahead, or at least stay in the competition. So that's my key motivation. And something else that really drives me is the impact that is actually happening. So with the kind of work that we do, there is an impact, and there have been changes in how an organization works, how its operational aspects are going about, or how they have actually embedded ESG, giving more opportunities to local communities, or to people, protecting the environment, reorganizing their own governance structure, or their own organizational structure to become more effective and efficient, with respect to not just ESG, but their core business operations. So I think that's what really motivates and drives me to be in this field. I definitely look forward towards more niche projects, like maybe tackling plastic, or more in terms of circular economy, understanding the supply chain, because as you know that with the current tariffs that have come up, that Donald Trump has come up with, yeah. So it's that the entire supply chain has been kind of disrupted. The entire global economy has been hit. So I think that is a very niche, not niche really, but a different perspective in ESG and sustainability. So yes, yeah.
That's wonderful. And we would like to see you rise heights and shine brighter
Thank
in
you.
your career. So now that you have given us so much of information, it's time to move to the fun part, which is our rapid fire round. So
Okay.
here are the questions which Madam has no clue about, because I did not even disclose to her that
Yes.
there'll be a rapid fire
Yeah.
round. It's
It was disclosed to me right when the video started.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So coming to the first question. If you had a superpower, what sustainable change would you bring in this world?
I think the biggest thing I would start off with is one of the main is carbon emissions. Can we just not have diesel fueled cars and have an alternative like hydrogen fuel that's come up with, so that there is no emissions from the transportation area? That's
Okay.
one thing. I mean, I know there are a lot of anthropogenic activities that cause emissions, but I think this is the one that I really want to tackle.
Okay. Great. The next question is, what is one not so sustainable habit that you're guilty of having?
Buying a lot of clothes. Buying a lot of clothes and jewelry, I think that's not sustainable, but I convince myself saying that I use it till it's, how do you say it, till it's
Till it's worn out. Like
yeah,
completely,
exactly,
like
worn out.
party wear dress then becomes ghar ka dress. then
Yes.
Ghar ka dress.
Ghar ka dress
becomes
becomes poncha, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't go till poncha. I kind of donate it, but after I've worn it a lot, but I kind of give it away.
Still keep it using.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely, the nightwear becomes poncha, maybe.
Okay.
Not guilty of that.
Okay. So the next question is, as a consultant, what is your dream company that you would like to work with, or your dream client?
Wow. Dream client would be Unilever, because I'm really, when I look at their global sustainability initiatives, I think they're doing a fabulous job. So definitely that. And dream consulting firm would be, good question. Definitely KPMG. And if there is any opening in McKinsey, please let me know.
Yeah, please let us also know if there is any opening in maybe
Yeah.
we'll like to go
We
there.
would like to go there. Yes.
Okay, so moving to the next question. Tell me some emojis that sum up sustainability.
Emojis, interesting. Definitely nature related, like the mountain. Then definitely, I think the sweaty one. That there's that sweaty face, because you're quite like, oh, what to do. And then definitely an excited, or that celebration emoji that you have, because it's like you've done something.
Okay.
What are other emoji? Okay, I think let's just say the bottom line, these three. Or maybe you can add another of environment. I like water bodies, so maybe we can have one water body emoji.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
River, ocean. Not very good with emojis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The next one, your personal favorite boutique consulting firm or Big Four?
My personal favorite, I think the Big Four. As much as pressure it gives you, it gives a great learning experience, great steep learning curve, and that pushes you, that really pushes you into the unknown, but for your betterment.
Okay.
Yes.
So can you tell a funny or an awkward moment from your consulting career?
So one awkward situation I think I can definitely highlight, or actually multiple times this has happened, not just happened with me, but I've seen it happen with others also, is that you make a presentation, you put in all the data, you put in all your facts and everything, and then you kind of present it to the client, and then you see that either the number is not there or the client name is not the name of the client. I mean, I have not done that, but I've seen it. Or else you are missing a word or the spelling is off. So this has been an personal awkward moment, definitely. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that happens more often than you think.
Yes, and that's a very common mistake because of the amount of work that we have. So it is always.
I know when you're like working with 4 clients, all of them have a deadline one after the other.
Yes.
Very possible. A lot of people have done that of sending the submission to the wrong client.
A wrong client with the wrong name or the wrong sheet. Sorry, or the wrong sheet or something else.
And then also face like a lot of consequences of doing that. But it's a journey.
I mean, we have been lucky that we have not messed up the client's name. We have seen it happen with other people. So definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so if you had time machine and if you could go back in time.
Okay.
So what one change would you bring in yourself to become a even more successful consultant?
I think read more, read as much as I could. I mean, I'm an avid reader, but more of fictional books and all. So maybe, that wouldn't help in my career. So of course, little more on ESG, a little more on what's happening, the current affairs and news, because sometimes it's not directly related to ESG, but that is how certain events influence business decisions related to ESG. That's one thing. And the other thing, I think I should have been a go-getter, kind of taking those initiatives that let me do this, without thinking about the aspect of fear. So I think,
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, so now coming to the last question for today.
Finally.
So can you tell one sustainability trend which you think is a game changer and one sustainability trend which is complete greenwashing?
Okay, I think I'll start with the greenwashing part first and then we can come to the change making part of it. So one greenwashing trend is organizations, going at great lengths to publicly disclose or commit about their ambitious targets with respect to net zero or waste reduction or, water neutrality or carbon neutrality. And so that is one really big greenwashing tactic that they use without having a concrete plan in place. That's one thing. With respect to a change maker, I think I am very philosophical or very traditional in that way, and I see nature-based solutions as a change maker. Now, if you ask what is a nature-based solutions, it's simply leveraging what nature already has, the kind of ecosystem systems, it already has in place to avoid natural calamities or not calamities, but I would say disasters like flooding or drought or so on. So, it's important for us as individuals, as an organization or as the government to leverage nature-based solutions. For example, restoring forests or restoring or planting mangroves at the right places in the coastal areas to prevent flooding, and in all those coastal cities. Or let's say you can talk about restoring wetlands. So yeah, I think nature-based solutions have a lot of scope and a lot of communities and a lot of people, organizations are implementing them, and you see a visible impact. So definitely that will always be a game changer, because there's no way you can go against nature by implementing such mechanisms, by implementing such solutions. And you are in sync with nature, and that's what sustainability is all about.
That I agree to it. That's truly a game changer in the sustainability field. So I think with this we come to the end of all of our questions we had for Ashwika. And thank you so much for all of these insights into ESG consulting. I'm sure it's going to be really, really helpful for everyone out there who is just starting or is in the middle of a thought process of switching to ESG or not switching to ESG. So I think it will help all of them. So thank you so much for coming on Gen Sustainable.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you here, and we wish you all the best for your career ahead. And we hope to see you soon again on this channel.
Yes.
So till we come back with another interesting video, stay tuned, like, share and subscribe, and follow this link to see all of my videos related to sustainability. Bye-bye.
Bye.